Thank you, Sunsara, and I'm really excited about the conversation. Look, the danger is fascism. What is fascism? It's vigilantes shooting Black Lives Matter protesters. It's open white supremacy. It's refugees in concentration camps. It's paramilitary forces using violence to suppress dissent. It is lie upon lie, such that the very concept of what is real and what is true is destroyed. It is outright theocrats dominating the courts. It is the brazen, open attempt to overturn the election of Biden to the presidency. It is the shredding of even the pretense of democracy. An attempted coup that has been threatened for months and which is now in its showdown in Congress and in the streets of DC has life and death consequence. This is true whether it succeeds or fails. The result of that is not yet in. Refuse Fascism has said that fascism is not just a gross combination of horrific reactionary policies, it is a qualitative change in how society is governed. Fascism foments and relies on xenophobic nationalism, racism, misogyny, and the aggressive reinstitution of oppressive traditional values. Fascist mobs and threats of violence are threatened and unleashed to build the movement and to consolidate its power. And we have seen this unfold, Sunsara, over 4 years. And now with Trump's electoral defeat, all the pus that is routinely spewed from this malignant boil of Trump and Pence has burst into the most glaring view in their bid to overturn the election. This has serious consequence, not just for the people of this country, but for humanity. The danger is all the more acute because there is no mass and massive resistance and repudiation of all of this. The Biden Democratic Party essentially says, what me worry? Biden will be president on January 20th. They are telling the hundreds of millions who voted to end the Trump-Pence regime, if you protest, if we engage Trump, that's just giving him what he wants. No, as a member of the Refuse Fascism editorial board wrote, quote, they are forgetting the lesson of World War II. Ignore fascists, and they will just go away. And we will never forget the cost of that folly. We have to understand that there are tens of millions of people who have been led, organized, and shaped in a fascist direction with their own media, their own schools, their own institutions for over 40 years to view themselves as the, quote, real America, and who have been conditioned to view a whole section of this country as alien, illegitimate, and undeserving of a voice. And they are blatant about who that is. Black people, other minority people, independent women, people who do not adhere to traditional gender norms, secular people, and people who just want a just world and do not think America is always right. There are two completely different views of how to cohere this country that have no middle ground. Trump's coup attempt shines a glaring spotlight on the reality that their attempt to overturn this election is in the service of bringing a neo-Confederacy to power. It is not without content that this fascist movement has continued to invoke civil war. The Confederacy of slavery in a modern day advanced imperialist America would be a fascist, fully apartheid, more aggressively genocidal America. Look, it is not impossible, even if it is still very unlikely, that Trump's attempted coup will actually succeed in the short run. He has a very narrow and steep path, but it is not over, and we must be vigilant, and masses of people must be prepared and be preparing to act should this attempt gain initiative towards succeeding over the next couple of days. But even failed coups do real and lasting damage, including that they can come back and assume power with or without Trump. And this would be catastrophic for humanity. The Trump-Pence regime has already done incalculable damage. To stay in power through the means of overturning an election would be crossing a threshold of a society you don't even want to have to think about, but you need to. Even if they fail, they will have created what our website, revcom.us, has called a fascist battering ram for the whole next period. This would be made up of a block of elected officials who view and act as if the Biden administration is illegitimate, and millions of people will support them. And this is important, they will have an armed street fighting force on call to dominate the public square. This would accelerate and cement a suppression of Black votes and Black people's and other minority rights generally on a whole other level. Next, the Christian fascist movement that has been the organized core of the Trump-Pence regime and now seems to be divided over whether Trump's brazen coup is the best way for them to achieve their goal of a Christian fascist white supremacist America, would fall in line should Trump succeed, further cementing the anti-women, anti-LGBTQ agenda that they have. And last, and already it must be said that tremendous damage has been done to the very concept of truth in science, without which humanity is at the mercy of being manipulated by whatever the demagogue and his compliant media says is true. I had the biggest inaugural crowd will be quaint compared to what the world will be forced to accept. So with these remarks, I look forward to getting more deeply into this and then to discussing what it is we have to do to move forward. So thank you, Cornel, and Reverend Lamar, and Sunsara.